All right. I feel totally comfortable on a stage with a crowd full of people all staring at me. But man, I feel so awkward in front of a camera. I always have. But here we are because I have a project that I want to start putting some work into. It's based on my favorite C.S. Lewis quote. And pro tip, every good Christian should have a favorite C.S. Lewis quote. And this one's mine. C.S. Lewis says, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else." And this, I believe, is what the gospel is supposed to do to us. That not only do I see the gospel, but by it I see everything else. It becomes the light that lights up everything around me. It's not an app that I download and use sometimes. It's the operating system of my life. It's not a set of belief statements. It's an entire worldview. It's not a set of words within your vocabulary. It becomes the entire language of your heart and mind. The gospel, as Jesus taught it, ultimately changes the way you see everything. Now, about a year and a half ago, I taught a class on this idea. I called it Gospel Fluency. I believe that when we first hear the gospel, like really hear it, then it becomes our job, our responsibility as followers of Jesus, our privilege as those who have been changed by him, to become fluent in the language of the gospel. It's meant to get in us, and once it does, it becomes the lens through which we see, ultimately, everything. We begin to see the truth of the gospel, the transformative power of the gospel everywhere. We discover that the gospel has been hardwired into creation itself this whole time. We just didn't see it. And the teachings of Jesus are, I believe, intentionally geared specifically to show us how to see the world that way. Gospel fluency. Now, I want to teach that class again at some point in the future, but before I do, I want to completely rework the curriculum, mainly just because I have too much content. Once you see the gospel and everything, well, then when you go to talk about the gospel, you want to talk about everything. And I feel like I need to do some pruning and some paring down to be able to say what I most want to say on this topic. And I still need to find a way to say some of those things in the best way possible. Mark Twain said the difference between a good word and the right word is like the difference between a lightning bug and lightning. And there's some ideas in this gospel fluency concept that I don't think I've found the best way to communicate them yet. I have a lot of lightning bugs in my curriculum, and I want more lightning. And so I want to process all of this content that I have. And sometimes the best way to process things is just to talk it out. And so my plan is to start talking it out on these videos. And so I'm going to be reworking all this content and release videos as I go. And this is really hard for me because I am a perfectionist. And have you ever noticed how your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness? Because I only like to release finished, perfect content, which means I never release anything because it never feels finished to me. It's never perfect. And so what I'm trying to do with these videos is convince myself this isn't a finished product. It's just part of the content development process for my class. And so that way it's just me just giving myself permission for these videos to be scrappy and for me not to have every word dialed in so that I actually do it. And so my goal is to release a video every Friday. And if nobody watches them, that's totally fine because it's helping me work through all of this content and come up with better ways to say things. So I'm excited about it. And if you do end up watching these videos, and I'm not just saying this, I want your feedback. I would love to have a conversation with you about this stuff. I'm passionate about it. I could talk about it all day. And again, the whole point of all of this is to work through this content and change things. And I could use your help, and I mean that. So I'd love to hear any thoughts you have. If they're mean, just private message me. That's fine too. But I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll have a video out next Friday. We're going to keep talking about what it looks like to become fluent in the language of the gospel. We're going to look at the teachings of Jesus. We're going to start there and realize that he geared his teachings, he wired them specifically to teach us how to see the world differently, how to let the language of the gospel become the language of our heart, and how when that happens, it really does change everything. And so I'm excited about talking about this stuff again. I'm excited to be digging into this content, and I would love to have you come along with me.